Hello, this video tutorial follows on from our previous one at Irish Board Gamer on rigging a Black Seas from Warlord Games frigate. We were doing a Spanish one. So if you bought this, you probably realised, or you've seen in the packet, there is various bits and bobs and flags and stuff, and in typical Warlord fashion there's very little support on making any of the models. It's my biggest gripe. It's the same thing problem we have with boat action, that very limited support on them. So that bear in mind, felt need to do a bit of a tutorial on it. There are two sheets usually in a packet. There's dark sails and there's light sails, and I've used the light sails on my French boats, so I'm going to put these dark ones on the Spanish ones. Just be careful. There's no, once you pop them out, there's no marking, so don't pop them out until you have to. And I've just noticed something there, so I'm just going to pause and I'll get the light sail sheet and we'll talk about it. Okay, so what I've noticed is, so here are the light sheets. It looks fine. Again, here's the writing on one side. What you'll notice is there's shadow here. Okay, so this is the shadow. This is when the sail bows like that at the front. So as it's moving with the wind behind it, the sail is going to be like that. So it's going to be in shadow. And conversely, at the back of the sail, looking at, I'm standing aft, looking forward on the boat, the sail is going to be in sunlight at the bottom. So you can see here on these ones. So there's sunlight on the bottom, shadow on the top, shadow on the bottom, and sunlight on the top. Okay, so the light hits here. So this will be shadow. So that's fine, and that's the way it's meant to be, and the way it should be. I just noticed when I took the dark ones out, so, and they have it on the light sails, shadow at the bottom, so this would be to the front of the boat, and shadow at the back. If you look at the dark ones though, the shadow on, they're symmetric. They're not inverted. So that seems to be an error, a printing error. So I'll just pull out another sheet and see, yeah, and these are obviously the exact same. So it wasn't that these are older ones and these are new ones. So there's a bit of a problem with the, well, it's a problem and an advantage. It means they're, you can't get them the wrong way around, but they're not going to look as good, the dark ones, as the light ones. And unfortunately, they haven't given me enough light ones. I can do all my boats in it. So I'm going to start with the light ones and on my Spanish frigate. So it doesn't really matter where I start, but we're going to start with the main sail. So I'll pop out these main, and again, these ones, it doesn't matter which way you get them around because there's no difference in the printing. So there we go. So this is obviously the bigger one. It's going to be the lower of the two. Now there is a bit more definition. Or is there? No, they are just inverted. Right, it's pretty about that. So the other thing I'm just going to grab. So this is obviously the frigate, which is the one we rigged. We're going to put it onto that one, and we need to measure the sails, because I was going to take a frigate that hasn't been even primed yet. This one here. Let's have a look at it. If you just put the attempt, whoa, something like that. If you attempt to put the sail on, so these ones are furled, so the bottom ones are furled. You can see that it's too big. Sail is not going to match up there. No matchy. The reason for that is because they're not meant to be square. It would look absolutely awful if the ship was going around with the sail flat like that. So there is naturally a bend in the sails. Now, if you ever looked at a sail is essentially a wing. Or a wing is essentially a sail, I should say. So it isn't going to be symmetric. It's going to bend more at the bottom than it is at the top, because it's going to be pulled in tighter and it's going to be humming. So we need to bend the sail. So how to do that. You could, of course, use your finger. I'm sure there's many people that do, but it won't give a nice curve. Plus, you want two slightly different curves. So what you're going to need is you're going to find an implement. So I have two of them, one for the top and then one for the bottom. So I find this one works quite well. That's about, what's that, about 7 centimeters. So it's about its diameter, about 7 centimeters. And the other one I have is much smaller. It's probably about 2 or 3 centimeters. You can see this is a file. You want to avoid several things. These pencils here are hexagonal, so or octagonal, hexagonal, and they are going to not be nice and smooth. This one is you can see my blood type there is O negative. This is a smooth. This is a nice smooth one as well. So this would probably work quite well as well. What you don't want is something like a paintbrush, which is tapered at one end, because that will give an uneven bend to it. So we're going to do, I don't want to use the timber. Actually, you know what? I'm going to try this pencil here. So you want to get a good bend in it. You want to get this an even bend, because it'll only make life a little bit more awkward for you. Yeah, I'm actually going to go back, stick to my normal one here. It's only going to make life a bit more awkward for you if you don't get an even bend. So we're going to give it a little bend like that. So now that's quite a symmetric one. And if we offer this up, it's handy if you have a second ship that you can actually measure them on, because the rigging is going to get in the way. So it's a nice bend, but it isn't enough. So I'm going to now use my pencil and I'm going to bend again, trying to keep this somewhat uniform. The bend, because otherwise the corners won't match. So now you can see now that should be more of a smoother curve. It's a bit rockety in the center. I'm trying to, so that will go there. And how is that for? Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Now, if you want to be really fancy, this makes it look way better, but is a bit more troublesome. You want to curve in the edges like that, and that'll look really well. Now this gets messy because unless I've gotten lucky there, you'll end up inadvertently bending in one corner more than the other, and it just will mean that when it rests on the thing, it's not going to rest properly. That's looking quite good though. Right, so that's the bottom one done. I'm going to do the second one because glue is going to end up everywhere. So these are smaller, so we don't start with the big bend. So I'm going to start with a smaller bend. And you only get a couple of goes at this. The paper will start cracking after a while and show wear and tear. So again, that's nearly there, just a small bit. So I'm going to use this one for the bottom. Just a little bit in. I'm going to pull the corners in as well. Like that. See there again, a nice little. Pull the corners in as well. Yeah, that's nice. That looks like a sail. Now, the other thing with these, for these ships to have any way of tacking, these sails would have been right over. Square riggers aren't great compared to modern boats going into the wind. Right, anyway, so now here's where it gets really fun in games. So now we're going to have to, I would recommend putting, I said the bottom mast, it's actually not the bottom because there is another one here, it's just furled. So that is going to go in there like that. In theory, the corner should really be only at the end of the spar. So that's going to go in there like that. Again, it's probably do a little bit more of a bend, but it's fine, it's fine. Now, this is where it gets really messy, especially when I'm using my awful glue. Isn't the state of that. Right, so we want a thin bead of glue along the top of the sail where it's going to touch the yarn arm. and at the two corners where it touches, where the toe of the sail is. You can always fish in here with a little stick with a coffee stirrer with the glue on it. Now the thing not to do here is to pick up the glue, pick up the sail, and try and get this into the rigging, past the rigging, without getting everything stuck and everything else. Again, be careful. Don't try and adjust it when it's not on this. Or as when I say adjust it, don't try and bend it, because the sail, that is, you'll end up causing all sorts of problems, and you're probably going to have to touch up some areas of glue. So just leave it. Have a look at it now, and I haven't got much contact on the spar there at the top, so I'm going to have to try and adjust it without sticking myself to it. Okay, what's causing me the problem is this bit of rigging that's coming down. So what I could do is, I'm not going to, but what I could do is I could cut a little tiny notch. May have to cut a little tiny notch in the sail to allow that bit of rigging come through, because it's pulling. What's happening is here, this bit of rigging is pulling on the sail. But if I can get it on secure enough, I'm not going to get it. So this is pulling on it, so it's pushing out here. So you can see it's not joining on here. So there is going to be an area where there's not contact. If I go down at an angle like that, it's like that. Okay, that's not great. It's not helping the fact that I'm trying to do it on camera as well. Right, I'm going to just have to live with that. Again, I'm only doing this to tabletop gaming standard, so you know, there is that. Okay, smaller sails, it's going to be harder to not get glue all on yourself. Okay. Remember, if it has two tweezers, have two tweezers, so that when you get glue all on one of them, you still have another tweezers to help you. Okay, now let's try and do this again. Okay, that one went on a bit better. That's good. So it's making contact at all 4 points. Now, it is a pity that the shadow is a bit wrong on these sails, but what can you do about that? Now, you can always go around a few minutes with dab of glue, just on any of them that aren't, you're not happy with contact-wise. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now off camera, unless I come into a difficulty with any of the ropes, and then I'll come back on to show you, is I'm going to do the other ones. In actual fact, yeah, no, it should be okay. So what I was going to say was, if I do have a problem with any of these lines here, I'll come back and I'll show you cutting the notch in it. It's basically cutting a V in the middle of the sail. So yeah, that's looking much better already. You know, the rigging, that is a bit of a pain and a chore to do, but it really brings the boat alive. Okay, so right, if this all goes straight forward, the next you'll see me is fitting this awful sail here at the end. And I say awful, it's a disaster, because it's very easy to get these angles a bit all over the place. And then you'll only find out when it comes to this point with the sail. Okay, talk to you in a bit.